This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Wednesday, May 11th, 2022. Let's talk about the news. From the New York Times, Russia-Ukraine war summary. Russia is rolling toward its deepest economic contraction since the 1990s because of international sanctions, according to an internal forecast by the Russian Finance Ministry. French President Macron has proposed the creation of a new European state grouping, separate from the EU, that would allow Ukraine to be integrated with the rest of the continent, leading up to their possible eventual inclusion in the EU proper. And the EU is also considering issuing a bunch of new debt to help fund the reconstruction of Ukraine, alongside loans to help the Ukrainian government pay the estimated $15 billion it will need over the next 3 months just to keep the government functioning. The Russian military is reportedly hitting the coastal Ukrainian city of Odessa hard at the moment, as part of their larger declared goal of capturing Ukraine's whole Black Sea coast, a coastline that is more or less entirely blockaded by Russian warships, which has in turn left an estimated 25 million metric tons of grain stuck in Ukraine, unable to be shipped around the world, which has contributed to increases in global food prices. From the Associated Press, parents hunting for baby formula as shortage spans U.S. The U.S. government has announced it's doing everything it can to address baby formula shortages around the country, but about 40% of big box stores nationwide are out of stock, and more than half of all U.S. states are seeing out-of-stock rates of around 40 to 50%, meaning they're out of about half of the brands they usually carry and have a limited supply of those they do have on shelves. This shortage is the consequence of the now familiar supply chain issues we've seen since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to discordance in the formula industry's usual production and shipping flow, combined with a voluntary recall of formula from several major brands after 4 babies suffered bacterial infections after using formula from a particular formula manufacturing facility, and 2 of those babies ultimately died. Several specialty formulas only came from that one facility, but other formulas were also pulled from shelves out of an abundance of caution, and only now, post-bacterial infection investigation, are manufacturing processes and pipelines beginning to spin back up, leaving a huge amount of slack in the usual formula making and distribution schedule. And from the Times of India, Sri Lankan Prime Minister resigns as crisis deepens, ruling party MP killed in violent clashes. Following protests that turned violent and led to the deaths of at least 8 people, including an MP from the country's ruling party, and which injured at least 200 people, Sri Lanka's prime minister has announced his resignation. These protests, which have been mostly peaceful up till this point, were sparked by the country's spiraling economic issues, many related to debt and insufficient foreign currency, which in turn has led to widespread and persistent power outages and ever-growing shortages and inflation. The president has refused to step down, but his brother, the prime minister, has announced that he has resigned his post effective immediately. It's unclear whether this will do anything to lessen the scope or intensity of these protests, as they turned violent after pro-government supporters attacked the peaceful anti-government protesters, and scuffles between these groups led to the aforementioned deaths and injuries, alongside orders by the country's defense ministry to shoot anyone they see damaging public property or threatening violence, and, according to police, at least 38 houses and 47 vehicles set on fire over the course of a single night. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts, at understandery.com.